Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I'm out here with Jacob with my brand new to me 1987 Warrior and his 1997 Warrior.
Okay, today guys we're going to be comparing these kind of early first-gen Warriors. This is like the first couple of years, this is the first year one, versus kind of a more late model. This isn't the final year, but it's a bit later, and we're just going to talk about, compare which one maybe you should buy, the physical differences, the parts, because over the years the quads are stayed very similar, these Warriors, but some things changed cosmetically and mechanically, so we're just going to get into it, comparing the front ends of these quads real quick. So let's start. I mean, obviously this is a pretty big difference between these. So the late model ones, I don't know exactly what year, I believe like mid-90s that they switched to these round upper headlights. I know they had some square upper headlights for a few years, like 89, 90, 91. Somebody can correct me on the comments, but I know that they had those kind of in between. So this is the later model. This is also how it looked at the end of the run. And then these early headlights, this is how it started, is these lower square ones. These are actually Hella Barons, or no, this is not Hella lights, but they look pretty cool. I like actually both of them. That just mostly comes down to preference. And then biggest thing is the front plastic on the later Warrior here comes down kind of on this nose more aggressively, whereas this one has been cut to accommodate the headlights, and this one has the higher vent. This one has no vent up here. Another thing that you'll see in the front of both of these quads is the front end. The bash bars both have these rubber nubs on both models. However, the kind of front end has a more sheet metal design like on here, and this front skid plate is kind of different built. I think it actually comes out a little bit from the front of the quad a little bit more, whereas this one's been damaged here on the roll bar, or the bull bar here, but this one's more a tubular design, probably a little bit stronger because of that, but it's a little less intrusive and big, a little more slim. So then we get to the front shocks. Now these I believe are aftermarket shocks on the 97 Warrior here. I think it says Shockwares by Outerwears. This is just a boot, and I believe these are maybe aftermarket shocks, or they maybe change the suspension on the later models, and these aren't aftermarket unless they're just covers. But here this one doesn't have the covers. These are red shocks. I don't know what these are under there, but we'll move on to the kind of control, the dash, the area. So Cameron specifically has a twist throttle here. That is aftermarket. All these came with thumb throttles from the beginning to the end of the run. So his was converted to a twist throttle at some point a long time ago. Pretty cool. We went over that in the review of his quad. Check that video out if you want to learn more specific about this quad, where we go over everything. Another change is he's got different grips. I don't know if these are stock.
These are more of the like original style, I think.
But probably replaced at some point, because these are definitely pretty nice. Mine are these Ori grips. They're blue. That's probably another aftermarket thing that wouldn't be, you know, that's just specific to each quad. And then the bar setup, I don't know if mine are aftermarket as well, but mine have this thicker bar setup, come all the way across, kind of a pointed bar, whereas his is more like a traditional like dirt bike kind of bar setup, with this thin one where you can put like a bar pad on here. And then I guess we'll move into one of the biggest differences mechanically is Cameron's, the older first gen models, or early models, whatever you want to call them, have a pull start, and that makes it more practical, or for if your battery isn't, or your starter goes out or whatever. I guess that adds reliability really to the quad, but mine, as you guys can see, does not have a pull start. This comes out a little bit more, but really not actually. So I guess the shift lever actually is probably different, but
yeah, mine's bent a little bit more.
So we'll get into the footwells here. Mine has footwells. I believe these are stock. Pretty sure they're stock. They have also this plastic guard, kind of mud guard, and then obviously Cameron's does not have any sort of footwell or anything, just the pegs. So that really is a more preference thing, whether you want to go kind of lighter setup or not. And then we'll move around to the back of the quad here, and this is where another big mechanical difference. This is the size of, this is the 97 Warrior here. This is the rotor, pretty big, probably bigger than my hand, probably like 9 inches across or so, and it also has a skid plate down here. And then we move on to this first gen Warrior, and it has, as you guys can see, a much smaller rotor. My hand is basically going across it. It's probably 7, I don't know, maybe 7.5 or so. And his specifically, this is probably, I guarantee this is not stock. This is specific to this quad, is this kind of hitch that one previous owner probably retrofitted on there. So that's really the biggest difference is, and then also the front brakes, forgot to mention that. Come around to the front and you can see that the rotors on the early ones are quite a bit smaller, doesn't quite fill the wheel, whereas on here these things are pretty darn big. I'm actually really surprised at how big those are. Or actually, no, this is a guard. I can see it now that the rotor is actually probably the same size, but these ones have these guards around the front brakes, so pretty interesting. That's mostly the mechanical and like physical differences between the two quads. And then, oh yeah, and then these two quads specifically have different seat covers. That's obviously going to change over the years. Seat covers get ripped, people replace them. And then they both feature different exhausts. This is a Super Trap on here, on the 97. And we don't know what brand this is.
I think it's like a DG or something. I have no clue.
Something
but
old,
not
but it's
stock.
Kind of rusted, but it's definitely not stock. Quite a bit louder than a stock one. So as far as that's really all the mechanical and like part differences about these quads, but how they ride is definitely different. So with the twist throttle on Camerons, this is the 87. This is obviously specific to this quad, but this thing is way more sensitive than thumb throttle. Like, I think this might have to do with when we showed this quad in Cameron's review, how he can be off throttle in the first gear and this thing rolls actually like an automatic transmission, kind of like a creep. I think that has to do with the way the twist throttle is set up, kind of always on a little bit. And then, so it's definitely more sensitive than the thumb throttle. So if you want to switch it out on a thumb throttle, if you have a Warrior and you want something more sensitive, then I would say go with a twist throttle. But the biggest difference with you guys ride is the suspension. So this one, this 87, we believe this is stock suspension, probably original shocks or something. It rides a lot more kind of soft and plushy, and so on a smooth surface with a little bit of bump, kind of like smaller, I guess, bumps, it kind of soaks it up nice and it rides a little bit smoother. But once you get into the kind of really rough parts, this thing basically just bottoms out and it really jostles the quad a lot. And whereas this one kind of is always a little bit bumpy with a stiffer suspension, I believe a stiffer rebound. And so when you get into the really bumpy parts, it kind of handles it almost the same as if it's like kind of smooth. But it's definitely still bumpy, but it definitely doesn't rattle you to death like that quad. And if you come around to the front of the quads, you can actually kind of see that, I don't know what it is. I think it has to do with the shock setup, or maybe these control arms are different a little bit, but this one seems to be, we found that this one's actually a little bit wider. So when we put Cameron's 87 into the truck bed, it actually rubs on the wheel wells and we have to like lift it over, whereas this one does not. It might be due to the tire setup, I think. It's come out a little bit, but this
actually
one,
I think my tires are thinner than yours.
I don't know, something. So these 87 ones are a little bit wider on the front, it seems. That might be due to the suspension kind of being softer and the whole quad kind of dips and sits lower at ride height. But obviously the tires on the two different quads are totally different, but you can change that. Everybody can change that. My tires are a bit higher in the back and narrower. His are kind of wide and knobby, lower. So when it comes to which one should you buy, I guess would be mostly preference on cosmetically, because they do ride very similar. I would say they're both equally as fast, and the older one has reverse still has an electric start, but I guess the pull start could be an attractive thing for you if you want that. But really it comes down to cosmetics, mostly due to the front end headlight design,
along with price.
Yeah, and that's the big thing, is price. Where we live, I would say that these are a little bit easier to find for pretty cheap, but that's mostly because they're older and they're typically a little bit more beat up, whereas the newer ones have a little less wear on them and they're a little bit nicer. So whichever one I would say you can find cheaper is the one you should probably buy, because I think these are both really great 4-stroke quads, 350, a lot of torque. These are a ton of fun out here. It's pretty muddy and you can slide around quite a bit. So whatever one you could find, I would say, is the one that you should buy. But personally, I like the way the later ones look, for sure. This one's nicer condition as far as plastics wise, so it definitely looks a little better that way. But this quad is still totally viable, very fun to ride. So
and for me, I almost like this one better because as you said, like if the electric start goes out, you might have a problem starting it. Which is
this
exactly
one
what happened. So
this one did the electric
the
start's
previous
not working.
owner said that this is broken and he put in a bypass. And
We
the bypass,
mentioned this in the review.
we mentioned
of
this in the review.
quad,
Go watch it. But
so that's why
today we're riding around and all of a sudden the bypass stops working. So now I'm using the pull start and it pulls, you know, it's a really, really heavy pull, but it starts up, you know, 1 or 2 pulls. It's just fine.
Yeah. So whatever comes down to your preference. I mean, this one does have a rear skid plate. If you're in a pretty rocky area, that might be nicer. And so whichever one you guys can find, whichever one you prefer. But I would definitely recommend picking up a Warrior if you're looking for a 4-stroke quad around the 350 size, 300, because these things
very powerful, and for the price, you
I would
can't
say
go
these
wrong.
are probably the cheapest. Like either model, like you can't find a Honda 300X in good condition for the same price as you could find a Warrior.
Yeah, so like this one, clean title, fully running, I got it for $12.50. If I wanted a Honda 300EX, which is 50 cc's smaller, or even if I wanted a 250 EX or 250X from Honda, it would be another probably grand.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to find one under 2. These ones in condition like this, I would say probably maybe $2 grand. Has some rust and some stuff, but the original decals I have not found any Warriors with these original decals in good shape. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you for watching, and if you guys are interested in our other Warrior content, we had a review on this way back. You guys can check that out. We'll put that in the description, and we'll put a link in the description to this guy too. And this one's Cameron just got this, so this is the first time we're riding, and you guys will see these riding in a video coming up soon. So
if you guys want to see him race, you know, see which one is really the toughest, please leave a comment down below.
Yeah. So please like and subscribe, and check out our other videos. Bye.